Herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe von Crop FM. Mein heutiger Telefongast ist Michael Glickman und es geht ein weiteres Mal um Kornkreise. Und wie immer gibt es den Cropcom, mit dessen Hilfe sich Zuhörer dieser Sendung live am Gespräch beteiligen können. Erreichbar über die Website von CropFM, cropfm.mur.at, und dann einfach oben auf Cropcom klicken. Wir sehen diesen Chat hier ein. Wir, das sind heute Chris Haderer und ich, der die Sendung mit mir zusammen moderieren wird. Wir sehen diesen Chat ein und freuen uns über Fragen und Anregungen. Mein Studiogast heute ist Michael Glickman, also eigentlich mein Telefongast. Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
So, welcome to Crop FM. You were an architect and you studied in London.
Yes.
And you were working in the areas of industrial design and product development.
Yes.
And you also were a professor in the UCS in Los Angeles once. And
USC.
USC, yeah. Oh, sorry. And now you live in Wiltshire.
Yes.
And
right in the heart of Crop Circle land.
Right in the heart of Crop Circle land.
Yes.
And how long have you been living in Wiltshire now?
I've been here for 4 years, but I've been here every Crop Circle season for, I guess, 13 or 14 years.
Oh, that's great. Well, I've been there the last 2 years, and last year we met in Glastonbury at the Crop Circle conference.
Yes.
And the year before, it's quite amazing. So.
It's astonishing.
Yeah, it's also almost addictive.
Yes.
You always have to return.
Yes.
Every summer. So, when did you get interested in the whole phenomena? What made the architect?
Well, I was broadly interested in the mid to late 80s when they were circles and rings, fundamentally unexplained circular events. But I was very intrigued by these, but I never took it beyond that until in 1990, the astonishing Alton Barnes aggregate cliff arrived, which was about 100 meters long, and the photograph of that appeared on in the Guardian newspaper, and I was so shaken by this photograph that I decided to drive down that day and see it. And I went to Alton Barnes and walked in the formation, and as I've said before, I never really got out, you know. I mean, I was just completely taken over by this magic. And I've remained close to it ever since. It's been the center of my existence, you know.
And what was it? What was the magic that captured you in the first place?
Well, I tell you, I'd been an architect, and I'd also worked in product development and design and engineering. And I was very much involved with the material world, I think. I spent my life making things, instructing people how to make things, whether they were buildings or whether they were objects produced in factories. And I took great pride in the fact that I thought I knew how everything was put together. And as soon as I walked into the Alton Barnes formation, I was perplexed, because while I had certainly nothing like the experience that I've now got in crop circles, I entered the Alton Barnes formation as a total virgin, you know. I don't think I'd even walked into a field before. I knew nothing. But as soon as I walked into the Alton Barnes formation, I confronted something which was completely unexplainable in our current civilization. I knew intuitively that this was a manifestation of elsewhere. And I studied it very carefully. I did not look at it at that stage geometrically. I was in it and I looked particularly at the way it was made. And I'd also had some experience in TV and movie set design and also in special effects. And it was absolutely radiantly clear to me that this was, certainly in terms of our knowledge at that time, and indeed at this time, this was miraculous. It was other. It was separate from the normal things we find here in the world.
So, from your first experience on, the first time you have seen a crop circle with your own eyes, most people that first are confronted with a crop circle might, go like, okay, how could this be done, and might think of ways how it could be done, but you never invest.
Look, you see, this is a problem which has been with me since 1990. Let me give you an example. Somebody is the curator at the Rijksmuseum and is a scholar of Rembrandt paintings. And an old lady arrives one day with a painting that her grandson has done. And she says, "Look, it's as good as a Rembrandt. Why don't you put it on the wall?" Now, of course, for her, it is as good as a Rembrandt. But the curator, the keeper, the scholar, looks at it and thinks it's a piece of junk. Now, here is the truth about crop circles, that for the majority of observers, an area of wheat stomped down is a crop circle. But for someone who has a degree of study in the subject, and in addition, study in design and manufacture, it's very, very clear that it's beyond our knowledge how it could be done. We live in a material world in which our first question is, how do they do that? And I think part of the lesson of the crop circles is maybe to learn to think beyond the simple mechanistic problem solving of how it's done. The more interesting question, I think, is why is it done?
And so you went away from trying to answer the question about the how, and you are dedicated to the why, so to say. So you.
Yes, I mean there are many people, and this is something that is very telling about our current world. Many people approach the crop circle simply to work out the mechanism, and of course no one. It's very, very rare to find anybody with a scientific background who will go near it because they're very scared.
Yeah,
they're scared of losing their credibility and their reputation and their grant money. But if they do, and there are several extremely courageous scientists who approach it, they approach it essentially to work out the mechanism. All they want to know is how does the crop lie down.
That's to your knowledge. Has anyone ever made a good explanation about the mechanisms that are used, regardless of who might use those mechanisms? But do you know of any good description of what could be making this?
I do believe that at the bottom level of the mechanism is some sort of microwave energy. I can't be sure of that. It's certainly not my area of expertise, but Dr. Levengood's team in the American Midwest has done a certain amount of research which indicates that the crop seems to bend over as a result of a burst of microwave energy. And I tell you the truth, who cares? I mean, again, going back to Rembrandt, if I said I was going to do a 5-year study on Rembrandt's paintings, and I came away at the end and I said, here are my results, I have discovered that he favored a number 5 squirrel hair brush, you would think I was mad.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, who cares about the bent notes anymore? We're finding such a depth of meaning and allusion and articulacy in the evolving geometry and form of the crop circles that the precise mechanism by which the individual stalk lies down is totally insignificant. What we really need to know is the intelligence which decides how a group of stalks, how a multiplicity of stalks will lie down using whatever mechanism to form an astonishing artistic, geometric, and formal demonstration. I just think the meaning is of far more significance than the mechanism. The mechanism, in my view, the quest for mechanism ran hard against a rock cliff some years ago.
So, well, I guess we both agree that the crop circles are not made but with boards and by students in their spare time.
I think of 2 or 3 of them are, and they're always rotten.
Yeah, you can spot them.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, just to stay a little bit at this question. I mean, don't you think it's or is it important for someone who has never been in touch with crop circles in his life? Does it make any difference if someone knows that how they are made, and or knows that they are not made by ordinary means? Do you think that this is important if you're new to this phenomena? Like maybe some people listening to right now might be new to this whole phenomena, and they just think, well, what's the point? But do you think that it is important to note that the bent nodes exist?
Yeah, I think that, we live in this society. We give a little kid a new toy, and the first thing he wants to do is to break it down with a screwdriver. We live in a world dominated by the most vicious fundamentalism in the world, which is not Al-Qaeda, but it's scientism. And scientism tells us that we have to know, we have to unpick things and separate them and put them in separate boxes. And so we are all brought up to want to be able to explain, how does it work? How did it happen? Well, I'm afraid we're not going to know how it works or how it happened for the moment, and there are much deeper lessons. The question of the bent node, the question of the energy, is of some interest. But I don't think it should dominate the awesome nature of the fact that planet Earth is currently being visited by what I can only call at the moment the miraculous. And for the majority of our culture, the miraculous is very scary, and they prefer not to confront it. They prefer to look the other way, and the easiest method of looking the other way is to shrug their shoulders and say, oh, they're all done by people from the pub with boards. But if anybody is truly interested in what's going on, then I'm slightly biased, but I cannot think of anything more important that's occurring on planet Earth at the moment than the yearly arrival of the crop formations. And I think it's everybody's duty to themselves to get involved in this at whatever level they can handle it, whether they get involved by coming here in the summer and actually looking at them, or whether they get involved by keeping in touch and reading books and being informed or buying videotapes. That's up to them, but I think they must be involved.
Why do you think it is important? I mean, what's the message behind this miracle?
Well, look, we don't know. I don't know. And I must start by saying that I've been working on this for 14 years and I don't know. But I have some ideas. I have some hypotheses. And I believe certainly that the crop circles are not messages, but communications from other civilizations. And they are communications to help us forward in a time of enormous transition, a time which is going to ultimately be to everybody's good, but will be fairly stressful in the passage through. And I believe these symbols are symbols of communications from elsewhere, from other dimensions, from maybe cousins who care very deeply for the torment that planet Earth is currently wrestling with.
When you describe this transformation, it reminds me of prophecies by various cultures, one of them the Hopis. And interestingly enough, the Hopis have ancient symbols carved in stone that resemble some of the crop circles that appeared. So, are you talking about the concept of an end time of this? Is this transformation what you mean? Is that what you mean when you say transformation?
I have great belief in the Hopi prophecies and the Mayan prophecies. I don't believe in the end time things. I don't think we're approaching end time, which has been seized on by American Christian fundamentalists more than anybody else. I do believe, however, that we are approaching the end of linear time as we have known it. I believe that linear narrative time and the material world are about to shift into literally another dimension. And I believe when the Maya and the Hopi referred to the end of time, the end times, they were referring to the end of this specific time, the time period through which they and we were living.
So you're referring to rise in consciousness?
Yes. I think the rise in consciousness will be a part of, fundamentally I'm referring to a shift from the third dimension to the fifth dimension, which will change our attitudes to both time and material reality, and will of necessity require a consciousness shift from us.
When people refer to you, sometimes I heard the term being used, fundamentalist. For example, last time you were on the show with Art Bell, the gentleman that was there as well, referred to you as being a fundamentalist. What does fundamentalist in this context mean?
I don't know, because I don't call myself a fundamentalist. He calls me a fundamentalist because I cannot accept his view that all crop circles are hoaxed. And fundamentalist is basically an insulting, pejorative term, and they don't like me. So what can I say? I could call him a banana, right? It has no meaning at all.
Why do you think that? Are people afraid of you?
I think a lot of people are, yes.
Why do you think are they afraid of you? What is frightening them in what you are?
Because look, humanity has a basic instinct to survive. We want to survive. You want to survive. I want to survive. And what is tied very closely to the instinct of survival is a desperation not to change the world as we know it. We're like little kids who are saying, "Daddy, Daddy, don't change the furniture around in our nursery." And I am facing the fact that the reality is that the furniture has already been changed in our nursery. And we need to gaze frankly at the realities of this, rather than hiding all the time behind all kinds of excuses. Oh, they're all man-made, Oh, science will help us. Oh, the CIA is doing it with lasers. Everything possible is brought out of the cupboard to cover over the reality that there is an astonishing, miraculous series of events on planet Earth every summer, and it seems to have a persistence and a meaning which we should gaze at and try and understand, rather than denying it. Now, I speak constantly for a frank study of the fact that something is happening on the planet that has never happened before. And those people who would prefer to brush it away and to make excuses for it are very frightened. And they call me a fundamentalist. I mean, I don't care. I mean, last week, the same week that I was being called a fundamentalist on the Art Bell show, I was being accused of debasing the crop circle phenomenon because I was trying, frankly, to recognize the fact that a handful of very bad imitations were man-made. And this upset a lot of people too, so that I seem to get it in the face from both sides. I can't do anything right. But can I tell you, I don't mind at all, really.
Now, as you have been working as an architect.
Yes, but that was years ago. I was trained as an architect, and I worked as an architect, and I taught architecture for many years, until I'd been involved with the crop circles for a while, and then frankly, that took over my life, I mean, much of what I've learned in architecture has served me very, very well in my crop circle work.
That's what I wanted actually to get to is, I think one of the most astonishing, or maybe the astonishing aspect of the whole phenomena is, regardless of how it is done or who did it or whatever, is the geometry of it. Yeah. So I suppose you were very much involved in that, with the beauty of it, but also with the mathematical relationships and the sacred geometry.
Yes.
And do you think that there is another message which is understood by maybe our subconsciousness? Do you think that looking at such a design changes the one who looks at it, or does it?
Yes. Simply yes. There seems to be a fairly consistent response to the forms in the fields, and that response occurs both from within them, when you visit them, if you like, as architectural space by walking in the formations, but it also seems to work when you contemplate them as images, be it a photographic image or a drawn black and white silhouette image. And in either of these cases, there seems to be some sort of direct contact with an interior essence of the person. And there are no rules about this. There is no mechanism that I've been able to understand, and there's no system which I've been able to pull out of it. And different individuals will respond very strongly to different formations. In many cases, certain individuals will respond very badly to certain formations. They'll respond badly to the experience of visiting a formation, or they will respond badly to the image of a formation. But in many cases, individuals will enter a formation and will be completely charmed by it. And the same with looking at a photograph. They're completely charmed by it. Now, I can't say how this works. I mean, what I do know, because I've been trying to understand the geometry of these formations for many years, is that, and look, bear in mind that I've been teaching designers, I've been teaching architects for the majority of my adult life. And I look at the product of the circle makers, whoever they might be, and I realize that I am in the presence of an astonishing, gifted, superhuman intelligence. The consistency of the inventiveness of this phenomenon is beyond, in my experience, human ability. And I mean, I'm sitting here looking at a range of imagery on my walls, and it's a dazzling display. And I think that one can say something very, very simple, that anybody who has understanding of the realities of design will not support the hoax hypothesis. And anybody who has done something as simple as put a shelf on a wall or mitered a corner of a picture frame will not be able to support the hoax hypothesis, because the supporters of the hoax hypothesis normally are totally visually uneducated, number one, and number two, they have no experience of the organization of making things in the real world. And you know, I mean, maybe it's me. I'm quite prepared to accept the fact that I am some kind of lunatic. But I look at this imagery and I believe it is astonishingly gifted. And this informs much of my work.
So without looking at the actual physical effects that are done on the wheat or whatever, radioactive residues, whatever has been measured in crop circles, just by looking at their design, you come to the conclusion that this is not, in quotes, man-made.
I am able to look at a photographic print of a formation, and by and large I can tell you if it's man-made. By and large, not 100%, but generally I can spot a man-made formation from a photograph, and very often I can tell you who the author was, who the designer was. Now, I normally wait in these circumstances until I've spoken to my colleagues about the quality of the manufacture, and normally I find that we are 100% in agreement.
Well, I once interviewed a gentleman in the Crop Circle Cafe in Wiltshire who informed me about Charles Mallott, is his name?
Charlie Mallott.
Charlie Mallott, yeah. He's also on this DVD I have seen, where I saw an interview from you. And Charles Mallott talked about a hoax, which quite astonished me because it looked quite complicated, but when you really looked closely at it, it was just a bunch of straight lines.
Yes.
And it was the one in 2001. Maybe you remember it. It appeared in August, end of August.
In Cheryl.
I think, yeah.
The 11th fold.
Yeah, it looks, when you first look at it, it looks quite astonishing, actually. But if you analyze it, you see that it's a hexagonal structure, and then just lots of lines between those endpoints. So
yes,
it's quite. And if you look at like Julia sets or like other designs or the Milk Hill 2001 formation, they're just 409 astonishing thing.
Yeah.
Then,
I think you're referring to the Windmill Hill.
Or maybe it was Windmill Hill.
It was the Windmill Hill 6-point formation.
Yeah.
Which had interference lines coming off it, and part of it was brought into a checkerboard pattern which they were unable to complete. Unless I'm mistaken, that is the one which also related to a previous formation that had occurred in 2000 at Avebury Truslow. Yeah, and they'd copied the principle of that.
I see.
Yeah.
This year when I was in Wiltshire,
yes,
I interviewed a gentleman who is in the process of writing a book about so-called earth serpents. And actually, the interview is up on my website as well. For anyone who is interested, in the Crop Circles section, you can get the link. And he was talking about, he called them Team Satans, who did crop circles, who faked them. But he noticed an interesting fact. He says that some man-made crop circles do the same thing as the genuine phenomena does. It attracts those serpents, those earth serpents, which are, I would say, you could maybe compare it to ley lines or energy lines. And those certain designs seem to attract those ley lines. And he also said that Stonehenge, as he understands it, was a means thousands of years ago to settle, to fix a certain earth serpent to flow in a certain direction. Do you think that this is? Do you think that this is also that this phenomena really exists? That crop circles do attract those earth serpents?
No.
No.
I mean, I believe that there is a possibility that earth energies are manipulable in some way, and there is a real possibility that ancient stones were a part of the organization of that. Maybe it's not my area of skill, but I do know that as the believability of the whole hoax thing has been fading, they've tried a new tack, and that new tack is to suggest that they themselves, the makers of man-made circles, in fact, in some way are shamanistic and have some mysterious contact with spirits and energies which are manifested when they make their circles. And I believe this is a foul lie. So there's never any evidence for this.
Yeah. Also, the gentleman that was with you on the last Art Bell show was actually saying that.
Yeah.
So you don't.
I think it's absolute nonsense. I really do believe it's absolute nonsense. I think the whole hoax fraternity are distinguished essentially by their dishonesty. The crop circle people, by and large, are open and genuine and honest, and they speak to each other and they share their research. The hoaxing groups are secretive, deceitful, dishonest, and they have as their highest goal the fooling of people, the deceit of people. And this has been going on for so long that I cannot take anything they say with any seriousness at all. And indeed, it upsets me even to talk about them because I think they've polluted a wonderful phenomenon.
Just to come back to my initial question, maybe. Well, this gentleman didn't say that all the crop circles were hoax, but he just talked about that maybe the reason why he measures that some earth serpents are attracted by crop circles is because of their geometry. Do you think there could be a relationship between that? So that
can I tell you something? I have looked at their geometry, the man-made geometry, and I would not have these people in my first year class. And they are unbelievably incompetent as designers.
Yeah, but I'm also talking about the real crop circles. Do you think that those with their geometry that there is a geometry that could actually affect the environment?
Again, it's not my area of skill. I don't know. I don't know who this guy is who talks about the conjuring of earth serpents by geometric shapes, but it is a very interesting idea which I would certainly be curious to hear more about.
I will send you a link so you can download my interview.
This would be very interesting. However, I am vehement about the fact that the hoax teams will seize on anything to give them a bit more credibility, and the credulous will accept what they say. But they are confidence tricksters, and if it suits them to say, oh, we are conjuring earth energies by our activity, then that's fine. I mean, I would feel much better about this if their activity showed any refinement or scholarship or discernment or artistry or skill or geometry or understanding of the phenomenon. Then one might give them the credit for some of their outrageous claims. But I think we must also accept that, by and large, humanity is pretty desperate to be fooled, as we've seen in the last few months.
Yeah. Michael, what do you think where is the phenomenon, where is it going within the mid-range terms, like next year, in the coming years, and where in the long term, what is it ushering in, or what is
I think this year, 2012, is a crucial year. That's now only about 9 years away, and I believe 2012 will represent the culmination of a dimensional shift. I believe that within the very near future, events on the world, certainly events in the crop circles, are going to become shocking in terms of their denial of our comfortable material reality. I think they've been knocking gently on the door of our consciousness, and they're going to become more insistent, and finally they're going to kick the door down.
And when you say kick the door down, do you think that we will not only be confronted with the phenomenon itself, but also with the makers of this phenomenon?
Yes.
And in which form do you think this contact will happen?
Well, I think they're very, very careful of us. They're solicitous of our well-being. And, people talk about the landing on the White House lawn and all this kind of stuff. But I think that they probably know humanity better than humanity knows itself. And I think they're approaching us very gently because they know that we are volatile, divine, aggressive, wonderful, stupid, and that if our little boat is rocked too severely, we'll start sending nuclear missiles at Addis Ababa or something, you know. We do not have a great record of dealing comfortably with change. And I think the crop circle makers and the civilizations behind the crop circles are very concerned about the reaction of the beings on this planet when we are forced to confront certain universal realities. I think they're trying to present it to us very, very slowly and gently so that we won't panic and start killing ourselves.
But still, there are only 9. You referred to 2012,
yeah.
which is a year I constantly stumbled over in the last 10 years, and I'm always also referring it in this show. It's becoming a habit, kind of. But after all, that's only 9 years to go. I mean, not even. So
excuse me. You say it's only 9 years to go. The world is already fragmenting. Do I have to point things out to you about the way the planet is unsustainable? You know, I mean, what could be more shocking than Arnold Schwarzenegger being elected the President of California or whatever?
Well, President of the United States would be more shocking.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I don't know if he would be more shocking than George Bush. But, I mean, we're living in a lunatic asylum at the moment. You know, millions are dying, children are dying, disease is rampant, the waters and the air and the seas are poisoned. We're right on the brink of a terminal catastrophe. I'm not shocked by the imminence, the nearness of 2012. I'm rather reassured by it. I think that it is going to be shocking when it finally hits, but I do believe we're going to have to completely rethink our attitudes to the world. But look, everything I say is a speculation. I don't know. I haven't received direct messages or instructions. You know, I can only I can only bring my intelligence to bear, and I work on this 7 days a week, and I've come to the conclusion that the crop circles are communications indicating the imminence of dimensional shift and the imminence of contact.
Do you think that the recent sun activity, which is very high, is also one of those signs that accompany this process?
Yes. Yes.
How is it related? Is it the cause of it, or is it caused by this?
No, I don't think it's a cause of it. I think it's one of many components of shift.
So this whole... are you saying then that this whole solar system is actually taking part in the shift, and or maybe even this galaxy? Or
yes.
So how far would you go? Is it a universal shift, or is it?
I think it's certainly centered on planet Earth and includes the solar system.
I see.
There's no doubt about that. I think the repercussions of what's going to be happening here are enormous and will have a universal effect also. But as I say, I must speak. I must try and speak with humility because I have little tangible support for these speculations. I believe in these speculations totally. I live with these speculations as I have been living with them for many years, but they're no more than speculation.
So, you mentioned 2012. Do you think that this whole shift is going to take place within those 9 years coming, or so?
Yes,
So 2012 is the final crescendo. Or?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think we went through the middle of it in 1998. Curiously, I think 1998 was the midpoint of the shift.
That's also what John Vallo Melchizedek, I don't know if you know this gentleman, is saying.
Yes.
He's also saying, referring to 98 of a shift.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think he calls it the arrival of the new energy, and then
in 98.
98, yeah, I think.
Yeah, I know little of his work, so I can't say.
Yeah, no, it just came to mind.
Yeah.
So the crop circle phenomenon is an accompanying phenomenon, or an accompanying.
I think it is one component which is readily visible.
What are the others?
Well, there are all kinds of things about dimensional shift. I mean, I would suggest that everybody who's listening has noticed, for example, that time seems to be speeding up. This is a subjective thing that we all notice now. I would suggest that everybody who's listening will notice an increase in coincidence and synchronicity. I would suggest that everybody who's listening will notice that healing is more accessible, whether healing given or healing taken. The other thing is that there is an increase in small incidences of physical impossibility, Newtonian impossibility. We are all as individuals meeting a strange thing in our lives, a little moment which can't be explained. Something very strange happens. And then the other thing, I mean, there are a list of about 8 of these, 8 characteristics of dimensional shift. Above all, one of the things that is most exciting is that the universe in many ways seems almost dumbly to obey our requests, and that we will often find that we are given that which we need. That's happening to more and more people. There are a whole list of things which cannot be explained by Newtonian physics. A great change in the energy of the way we're living our daily lives. And I think this is part of the transition, which, we can deal with now as human beings in the 21st century by shrugging our shoulders and saying, oh, that's weird. But it's happening so widely and so comprehensively that if we stop and think about it, we can see that there is a major structural change in the world.
So, Michael, what would you personally wish for the future? Well, now we're coming to the end of the show, and we got another 5 minutes. So that would really be something I would be interested in. What would be if things would turn out the way that you would like them to turn out? Well, here we are. I would like every individual to get closer to his or her heart. I would like every individual to exercise greater humanity and humility. I would like every individual to exercise much more discernment, and I would like every individual to be more open and to use more of their heart than the frontal lobe of their brain, their spirit. And do you think that crop circles and all the other phenomena that you mentioned are actually here to help us doing so?
Absolutely. I think that is exactly what they are here for, to help us move away from this stupid, aggressive materialism, this jealousy and limit, this world of constraint and limitation, into a world of possibility and of miracle, which is being offered to us.
Okay, well, thank you, Michael.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well, I hope we can repeat this once in the future and have another chat, maybe.
Whenever you want.
Yeah, I would be delighted to do so.
Whenever you want.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much for being my guest today, and
well, thank you.
I will send you the link of the gentleman with the earth serpents, which is...
That's very good.
And maybe you can get in contact with him, or...
Fantastic.
Okay, so
thank you.
Have a nice evening.
And same to you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ja, das war Michael Glickman. Und ja, wir sind am Ende. Vielleicht noch jetzt kurz der Hinweis auf die nächste Sendung. Wie hat dir eigentlich, du warst ganz ruhig, Chris, wie hat dir eigentlich die Sendung, Ja,
ich habe ganz fasziniert einmal zugehört. Mit Kornkreisen kenne ich mich so gut wie nicht aus. Und das war eine sehr spannende Sendung, sehr spannendes Interview.
Und die nächste Sendung wird ja genauso spannend und von dir moderiert. Um was wird es da gehen? Die ist am 12. Dezember.
Ja, nun, es gibt den Masaru Emoto, der ist bekannt dafür, dass er seine Wasserkristallfotos gemacht hat, dass er Wasser anhand der Kristalle die Qualität beurteilt und dem Wasser sehr interessante Fähigkeiten zuspricht. Der war jetzt in Wien und in Salzburg bei einem Vortrag, und in Wien durfte ich ihn treffen und durfte ein Interview aufzeichnen, und damit werden wir uns dann nächste Woche befassen. Also in 14 Tagen befassen. Ja.
Also am 12. Dezember dann Masaru Emoto, eines der wenigen Interviews, die es in Österreich gibt.
Es gibt nur zwei, eins hat der OF, eins habe ich.
Und eins hat Crop FM. Ja. Okay, ja, ich bin vielleicht dabei oder auch nicht, ich weiß noch nicht, ob ich da bin, aber
gerne jederzeit.
In jedem Fall werde ich es mir gespannt anhören. Ja, ich verabschiede mich ebenfalls, bedanke mich fürs Zuhören, und ja, falls wir uns nicht mehr hören, wünsche ich ein nettes Fest und schönes neues Jahr. Auf Wiederhören.